I'm a big believer in slow down to move fast. So when you think there's something there, go explore. And that's not just interviewing, that's experimentation, that's trying prototypes, that's just observing, ethnographic research, just observing your customers in their environment. And it's not just your customers. It could be internal innovation. It could be, how do we make our business work more effectively or efficiently? And let's go see what's really happening and understand how humans are behaving inside the organization.
Welcome to the Strategy at Scale podcast, brought to you by Scaling Up, Outthinker, and Growth Institute. I'm your host, Kyan Krippendorf. Our mission is to cut through the sea of conflicting business advice and get to what actually works. We talk to entrepreneurs, business builders, and academics who've successfully scaled and studied the scaling of companies across industries to extract proven, high-impact strategies for building long-term value. You just heard from Julia Austin, a seasoned operator, startup advisor, angel investor, and faculty member at Harvard Business School. Julie has helped scale some of the most iconic tech companies of our time, from Akamai to VMware to DigitalOcean. She's also coached hundreds of founders, taught thousands and thousands of students, studied and contributed to the literature on entrepreneurship. And now, with her new book, After the Idea, she's giving us a rare behind-the-scenes look at what it really takes to build a startup that lasts. In this conversation, Julia pulls back the curtain on the overlooked but essential questions founders must ask once the initial spark fades and the real work begins. Drawing from decades of experience, she challenges the move fast and break things mindset and offers a far more intentional playbook, one rooted in discovery, discipline, and clarity. This isn't a highlights reel of big wins. It is a grounded, honest, and practical discussion about the systems, culture, and decisions that support scale. In this episode, we cover why startup success often hinges on what happens after the idea and the hidden risks founders overlook. Julia's framework for identifying real product market fit and how to test it with scrappy real-world experiments. How to build a culture that supports execution, not just feel-good values, and the link between clarity and resilience. What big companies get wrong about innovation, and how to design intentional processes that actually support it. Why slow down to move fast might be the most underrated startup strategy of all. Whether you're leading a venture-backed startup, joining an early-stage team, or scaling innovation inside a larger organization, this episode will help you rethink what it means to scale smart. Let's dive in with Julia Austin. Julia, it is so great to have you on the podcast. I was thrilled to get a pre-reading copy of your book, and I read it on the beach, and I loved it. So it's thrilled to have you here. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
I want to open up with the same two questions that I ask all of our guests, just to get us to know you a little bit more personally. Please complete this sentence for me. If you really know me, you know that.
Know that I was a studio art major in undergraduate school.
Wow. And is that a particular medium that you studied?
I did everything. So painting, drawing, sculpting. However, it was the 80s. So back then, computer graphics was all programming. So I spent a lot of time in the computer lab while I was an undergrad.
Ah, fascinating. I also studied art in the 80s. I went to a high school, then afterwards, at 12:30, I'd leave and I'd go to a special school. We didn't have computers, though. But we did all the other media. Nice. All right. What's your definition of strategy?
So strategy to me is not a document. It's not a 5-year plan. It's a living, breathing map that's usually defined by vision, but also market constraints and other constraints that you might be facing within your business. So it evolves, but it's as much about execution as it is about vision.
Great. I got it. Yeah. And sort of, I can see that in your framework, that there's the testing and learning and adapting, and then there are the different stages of the growth of the business in which, and you kind of have a plan for the big, but your phases along the way. Love it. Great. I have many, many more questions here than we have time to cover. So I'm going to dive in and we'll jump around a little bit. But I'd love to start off with kind of the first step in designing, of scaling a business. And I love that you bring both big company perspective and entrepreneurial perspective, because you were at VMware for a long time and you've been teaching entrepreneurship for a long time. First, just tell us a little bit about your VMware experience.
Sure, sure. And also, I was at Akamai before that. So I've been at 3 different tech companies, all early stage through scale. And so that experience of going from how do we get to product market fit and know whether there's a there, and then work towards a strategy of saying, okay, we found our niche, our sweet spot. How do we actually start to build out a real business that not only thrives, but goes public and has longevity well beyond my years there, which all 3 of the businesses, Akamai, VMware, and DigitalOcean did. So that experience of kind of groping around in the dark and then finally saying, this is where we're going, and let's make sure we go there and we continue to operate at scale.
Love it. Yeah. And that's the topic of the first thing I want to talk about is how do you find there's a there? How do you feel confident that there's there? I did get to do a little bit of, had a little bit of exposure to VMware. I did some training there a long time ago. And with all these trainings, we do this 2x2, easy, difficult, high, low impact. And we always have to emphasize, don't give up on the difficult, high impact ideas, because those could really be, and at VMware is the only company where they told me, no, we need to tell them not to do that, because that's what they always want to get. They always get attracted to are the big complex problems that aren't solved yet. Which brings us to this question of how do you recognize that there is a there? And first, talk to me a little bit about discovery and why that is so important, and what do people get wrong with discovery?
Yeah, so I think it's a step that too many, whether you're founders or you're an innovator inside of a large organization, skip. There's an assumption, I know the problem, I know what my customer needs, they don't know. Or I got 2 tickets from support, I think I know what the problem is, and now I'm just going to go build a solution for that, which ends up very frequently wasting time and money by doing that. So I'm a big believer in slow down to move fast. So when you think there's something there, go explore. And that's not just interviewing, that's experimentation, that's trying prototypes, that's just observing, ethnographic research, just observing your customers in their environment. And it's not just your customers. It could be internal innovation. It could be, how do we make our business work more effectively or efficiently? And let's go see what's really happening and understand how humans are behaving inside the organization.
So you talked about experiments, and I love your framework of these 4 different types of experiments, because I think that people maybe think too myopically on what an experiment looks like. You talk about ethnographic, be the bot, the Wizard of Oz, low fidelity. I'm particularly curious about Wizard of Oz, but maybe you could just describe those for us.
Yeah, sure. So ethnographic is observing your customers or whoever your target audience is in their natural environment. And I actually think this is something, a lot of people are relying on AI right now, but I think it's something you're going to miss if you just use a tool like AI to tell you what your customers are going to do if you make this thing for them, or what they believe or it believes is the real problem. So just observing you'll not only see things that an interview would never disclose, right? Something that they do, a step in their process, or somebody they talk with that they didn't even mention in the interview because it didn't even occur to them. Oftentimes it's just natural. They just do it. But you're also getting to observe emotional responses, which I think we miss when you see somebody go, oh, I hate that part of my job, or like, where is that thing? That's the thing that really lights up there's a there. And so I think just interviewing or just doing mock-ups and having people walk through a user experience if it's software alone will not tell you enough about what's really happening with your customers. So that's ethnographic research. The Be the Bot is a way of actually executing on a solution before you build it. So that could be, let me do it for you. I'll create the spreadsheet. I'll make the report. I'll go run and pick up the thing if you're creating a consumer product and do it. Actually do the work for them as though the bot was doing it for them. And by integrating yourself into the process, you'll have a much better understanding, not only how would this work if I had to go build this, and how does my customer react to that thing, but also you almost sure to find other things you didn't even know were part of the process. And it can be really simple things. So for example, I have a former student of mine who was developing a new device for stylists to use in hair salons. And she had interviewed a lot of hairstylists. She had interviewed a lot of individuals, consumers who go to these stylists, but she hadn't actually observed what the experience was like in the salons itself. So she immersed herself, not just observed through ethnographic research and watched the stylists do what they did, but she herself got involved in the process to really understand, what does it mean to bring my device to this particular target audience. And what she learned purely just by being part of the process was that space was really limited for these stylists. So if she was to offer them a new device, they would run into a situation of where do I put it, and how am I going to plug it in? And that was one of those things that had she not spent the time doing that, she would have tried to sell something and had a lot of resistance. Yeah, the product itself makes a lot of sense. And so I think immersing yourself, what I've observed is over time is the founders or innovators who immerse themselves in the situation, put themselves between them and the solution with their customers, are more likely to not only build the right thing, but observe things they probably didn't expect to observe or experience by becoming part of it.
Yes, and I can see that probably being both avoiding mistakes that you might others make, but also then seeing opportunities that you might have missed as well.
100%. And I can't tell you how many times I've had innovators, whether they're product managers at big companies or they're founders at startups, who by doing that come back and say, this is a whole other problem there that we didn't even realize was a thing. And maybe that's the thing we should focus on.
As you were with Akamai and VMware and as they scaled, how did you maintain? We're still going to get to the Wizard of Oz and low fidelity, but at least on the be the bot part, how was that done? How was that? 'Cause I can see an entrepreneur saying, I've got an idea, let me go and cut hair. But if a VMware person says, I want to go to a hair salon and spend a week there, like how does it happen and what's your scale?
Yeah, in a B2B context. So in the B2B context, it is still spending time with our customers and watching what they're doing. So in the VMware, I'll use this as an example. We would go to data centers and we would watch what sysadmins and data center operators were doing to just maintain things, or provisioning is a classic example. So at VMware, turning virtual machines from hardware to software, that's what virtual machines are. IT people were getting requests all the time to configure servers and machines for their customers who were employees or others in these large companies. So we would get involved in the provisioning process. We would actually say, go show me what you do when you have to go get a server, set it up, bring it to the customer, or set up, configure it in your data center, and then let the customer know it's now available for you to use. Show me how you do that, or I'll do it for you, right? I've had people in the organization actually hang out in the data centers and do it. And we certainly did that at Akamai all the time, helping our customers set up and configure their websites. This is early, internet days where they didn't even have to set up websites. So let us do that for you, but then also understand what issues you're facing or your reaction to us doing this for you informed everything that we did.
Got it. Okay, good. That really helps visualize it. I love this Wizard of Oz terminology, but can you unpack that for us?
So the Wizard of Oz method in product management is creating something that, let's say, has a false front. So it could be a website or an app or something that appears to be fully functional, but actually what you're interacting with is human beings in the back end. And what's nice about that is, again, you're getting a sense of what customers are looking for, what users want, or how they're navigating your system, but you're in the back end actually doing the work. So an example of this would be a team that I worked with who was helping individuals refinance their student loans. And they had a theory that people would come to them, say, tell us a better rate that we could get for our student loans. And then they would go and tell them, here's 3 other ways you could refinance, or here's 3 banks that you could refinance with. But what happened in the original days, or in the early days for them, was they created a false front. They asked a few key questions, and then they were literally making phone calls to banks and trying to get all the deals. And then, huzzah, there was a report that they got. And from the customer's perspective, they had no idea. So it was very much the magic behind the curtain, right? So they had no idea that the work was being done by humans in a manual way, but it was a way for the company to figure out, what do we have to do, not only to deliver some options to them, how do they want to see those options, but also how do we build trust with them? Because they noticed, based on different questions they asked, they got different answers. What were the ones that were going to have the average person be comfortable giving financial information to them before they went and built a whole back-end system and a whole configuration that would have been a waste of time if they had not done that?
Yes. And I've heard, I don't know if it's true, that's also Uber started that way, Airbnb started that way, as just a spreadsheet that was managed in the background before they decided to invest in technology.
So much of that was scrappy, hands-on, craft the solution yourself, get really comfortable with, okay, I know what it is now. I know what it is that's going to make them light up, or that's going to make them tell their friends they should use our product as well. Then go build it, and then you can scale.
And then finally, low fidelity.
Yeah, so low fidelity is, in fact, as it sounds, it's as low digital, low tech as you can possibly do. So today we have a lot of tools that are available to us, whether it's a Figma mockup, if you're building software, or it could be a 3D printed device. So going back to the hairstyling example, she's a mechanical engineer. She knew how to do 3D printing. So she did a 3D device that she was able to put in stylist hands to actually see what would happen in a low fidelity way before she created the final manufactured device. But with software, that can be everything from paper to just like, here's a bunch of different index cards of what we think the process would be like, put them in an order that makes sense to you for how you might use our product in a very low fidelity, scrappy way. Or to the example you had, spreadsheets. I'm going to just create a bunch of spreadsheets and put them in front of you. And we're going to iterate and go back and forth on these things until we find something that works. Again, preventing the let's not overbuild if we don't have to. Let's just create things that are scrappy to help us learn.
What else do good entrepreneurs or business builders look for as signs that this, like, is the market big enough? Is it growing? Is the market dynamic? Is profit pooling? Like, what are some other things that we should look at?
Sure. So a couple of key things are the addressable market, the TAM, total addressable market. Is this a big enough market? Or maybe it's just our beachhead. Are we going to start here? Healthcare is a great example of this. I might be solving for a women's health product or some digital health solution for women. But I'm going to start with women between, whatever it's women who are solving for reproduction challenges or other challenges, or women who are the ages of 20 to 30 as a place to start. That market itself might not be huge, but if we're going after the whole market, then we can identify, like, this is where we're starting. This is what we call our beachhead, the wedge. And then from there, we imagine there'll be a bigger market that we can go after. So that goes back to strategy, which is our strategy. Maybe we're doing healthcare. We're starting with this particular constituency or this particular demographic. Let's get that right. But our strategy is that will be a launch pad into other things.
Correct.
So sizing the market is really important. So that's number one. And then the other thing is unit economics. So not that those two things are exclusively all you have to worry about, but those are two important things. So the unit economics of what's it going to cost for us to not only build this thing, but market this thing, the cost of acquisition of getting our customers on board and finding them. So that could be marketing, and then deciding how do you do that? Is that going to be organic? Are we going to have a whole campaign? How much money are we going to put into finding our audience and getting them excited about what we're doing? And then running the business, which is oftentimes what we forget. We're so excited about the solution and that we found a there that we don't realize, oh, we have to build like a whole company around this. Or if it's a big company, it could be we have to build a whole new business unit. So I'll give you an example from VMware on that one.
Mm-hmm.
This is not in my book, so this is exclusive.
Okay.
So in the early days at VMware, when we're building for servers, x86 servers, we started to catch wind that there was going to be this cool new device that was going to come out that was going to be a smartphone. Smartphones are ARM servers, are ARM technology, not x86. And so we had a hypothesis that if these little devices actually became real and people would start using them at work and personally, that virtual machines may need to be on them. So there was a hypothesis that we said, what would that look like? What's the market size? How many human beings do we think are going to be walking around with these phones? And should we start to explore putting virtual machines on ARM? And how much do we take advantage of what we have already versus how much do we have to build out a whole new team with new skills, build new relationships? We were talking to all the mobile providers, carriers. That was a whole new set of business partners for us. So it wasn't just take our technology and port it over to a new platform. It was also, we might be a whole new type of company or have a whole new business unit if we do this. Similarly, we had a conversation of should we stand up our own cloud, right? We were used to selling products to people to put in their data centers. But if we were going to run a cloud, that's a 24/7 operation that requires a very different set of operating procedures and humans and everything else that would have had to gone into that if we had done that at the time. So my point of bringing that up in the unit economics is understand what's going to take to actually run the business if that's what you're going to do. The human resources, physical resources, potentially. If you're manufacturing something, there's a whole set of material costs and other things that should go into it. So just the idea alone or just getting somebody excited about it isn't enough. which is what are all the other things you need to think about, because that is a whole company.
You look at your TAM and you find your beachhead. You know you can win on the beachhead, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to allow you to win with the larger TAM. So what I would think has to translate is some source of competitive advantage that you can bring to the larger beachhead. What are the sources or types of advantages that a business builder can look for?
Sure. So beyond just, well, I have an idea, I think we've proven it out. It's definitely, there's a there, and the TAM seems reasonable and unit economics seem reasonable. It's the first thing is, can we execute, right? Do we have the right team and the right credibility and skills to do this, right? So some teams naturally are those people. They either are domain experts, they're people who, again, using the healthcare example, maybe are former clinicians, or maybe they were involved in some way in the industry where they really understand their customer and they have, for an old school term, but a Rolodex or connections that are going to open doors for them that maybe a competitor wouldn't have access to, which can be huge. So that's number one. Are you yourselves or your team the right humans to do this work, skilled and experienced, and have the right connections to do it? Second to that is, are you surrounding yourself with other people like that? So that could be advisors, investors, other key people who can really, again, help you get through certain doors, especially if you're doing anything in large enterprise where that can be harder to do. And aligning yourself with people can help you navigate things, if you're new to this, like contracts and deals and other things that can be tricky. So the people, the skills, the domain experience are really important. Beyond that, it's funny, it used to be a time where things like IP and patents were really important to worry about or to file. I'm not a big believer in that unless you're doing something in like the life sciences or hard tech where you've truly innovated something bespoke that is, coming out of a lab, or something that's like truly special. Really, execution is what's going to do it for you. I mean, patents are great to do. I work with a company, it's a robotics company. They're doing something quite interesting with their algorithms with robotic arms for big, large commercial kitchens. That's worthy of a patent potentially, because they've really created something unique and special. But at the end of the day, if they can't execute and they're working with massive companies who are really hard to navigate, and just negotiating contracts alone is hard. I think that can be your competitive advantage. If you know how to figure out how to crack that code, how do we work with these big companies, or how do we get a larger audience excited? For other businesses like consumer businesses, or if you're selling to consumers, it could be the influencer market. And a competitive advantage is, we find the right sort of luminaries or people who have a lot of followers who are going to promote our business and really make us credible. If it's not us, it'll be them. And that can be another competitive advantage.
Great. So we've identified the beachhead. We've identified our competitive advantages. We're ready to go in. And I just want to talk now a little bit about building an organ and aligning the organization. Let's start with culture. What is your view in culture? Because there's a common view that kind of culture is people being happy, being a great place to work, and kind of treating employees well, which I think is important. But you point out that, just tell me, how do you build? Maybe take us through Akamai, for example.
Yeah, sure. So I think what's really important with culture is not just the humans that you bring into your organization. And even if you've decided you're going to double down on AI and only have a tiny organization, you're still going to have humans that you're going to work with. Having good people and figuring out what does good mean for you, and bringing different opinions and voices into the equation. So I like to say it's a culture add versus fit. So how are we diversifying? How are we making sure that we have a really inclusive organization where people not only enjoy coming to work every day, but they tell their friends like, hey, you should work here too, because it's amazing. And it's amazing because it's fun, it's interesting. So at Akamai, it was like that for me on day one. It was, wow, these people are really smart, but they're also like decent human beings. And I want to hang out with them because I'm going to work with them. Likely at any company you go to, you're going to work with these people and have more waking hours with them than anybody else in your life. So bear that in mind, that you're really creating a family in a lot of ways, which Akamai definitely did well. But the other element to this, which is really relevant, in the context of what we've been talking about, is how strategy ties to culture. So being great humans and enjoying working together is great, but also being aligned on what the strategy of the business is equally, if not more important. So that involves being very transparent and clear and communicative about what your strategy is as an organization, and making sure everybody is aligned on that. So I can start with Akamai and saying, Danny, our founder, was just extraordinary when it came to making sure that the whole business understood what we were doing and why we were doing it. And if we, early stage, we were shifting and pivoting a lot and trying to figure out our sweet spot. We had a solution for the internet to make it faster, but how it was really landing with our customers shifted over time. And he was excellent at making sure that he imparted in many different communication vehicles, whether it was an all company meeting or an email, here's what we're doing and why. So the what and the why are really important for the entire organization culturally to align with that and really understand this is what we're doing. And we're rallying around the right things together as a unit, as opposed to silos or individuals who are trying to accomplish different things inside of the business. So there's this very cohesive, supportive business culture that all knew what direction we were going in and why we were going in that direction. And so when we lost Annie, which was very sad on 9/11, very tragic. However, sort of a very meaningful and a big inspiration for why I do what I do was because we had that foundation, that clarity, and everybody knew what the strategy was. We could have easily gone out of business without his vision and leadership. But in fact, he had embedded all of that into the culture of the organization, and we continued to thrive after the bubble burst. And the company, to this day, thrives as a massively successful company. And I can say the same thing about VMware. There was never a single person, I can tell you, a couple hundred people to when I left, and there were 15,000 people. Everybody knew what our vision and our strategy was at that company. There was nobody questioning, why are we doing that? Or what is this about? And when new things happen, we were innovating all the time at VMware. That was a time for us to take a step back and ask ourselves as a leadership team, is everybody clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it? Right. So if we did an acquisition, we did a lot of acquisitions when I was there. So we did innovation through acquisition as well as innovating inside the business. It wasn't just, hey, we bought this company, but let's help everybody understand this company is complementing something we're already doing here, or we're going into a new market segment and it's critical for us to have this thing. Whatever it was making sure everybody understood this is why we're doing this thing. And that alignment made it just a very healthy culture and a fun place to be.
So it sounds like we just rolled off of Akamai culture, VMware culture, everyone knowing the vision and the strategy. So, you have seen businesses being built from the ground up and from 100 people to 15,000 people. You've seen both contexts. What do you think is different about the challenge of looking to grow something in the scaled company versus the startup company? What does the entrepreneur or the strategy officer need to recognize as different?
Yeah, at scale, there's a couple of things that can be challenging. One is this pressure to innovate for the sake of innovating versus is there really something we're trying to solve as a business? So what are the objectives that are shifting or changing as a business? Are we plateauing? Are we seeing the market change? Are there new things happening that we need to start to address, or other reasons for innovating? So I think the first thing is just being really clear, why are we innovating? Like, it's not just innovate for the sake of innovating. Then the next part that I think can be challenging at scale is things get more complicated, budgets. Innovation can oftentimes be compromised or cut before other things. And so one of the things I really appreciated at VMware, which I would say was the strongest in terms of how do we continue to innovate and really preserve the efforts around innovation, was if there were times like during 2008 financial crisis when we were managing our way through that we had to make cuts, then it was a percentage done across business units as opposed to let's cut innovation first. And there was a recognition that we got to keep innovating. We have to keep working on some of these cool things that we're building inside the business that are going to eventually bear fruit. And that last part's really important. Innovation can take time. So I talked earlier about a mobile solution and us kind of toying with the idea that maybe smartphones would be a thing and we would have to worry about it. We actually had some early versions of that technology from years before that a couple of the founders had played with and shelved. And it was great that they said, let's not throw it away because someday we might need this. And when we were ready to revisit it again, it was, let's take the time to really understand where the industry is going, start building some stuff, experimenting, doing all these other things. But it might be 3 or more years before this thing actually bears fruit. So cutting things too early can happen often if we don't see results right away inside of a big company. And I think that's something you need to be really careful about. The last thing I'll just point out here, and this is something I saw often there too, is making sure that no one felt that there was an ivory tower for the people who were innovating versus the people who are doing like the day job, right? So you being careful about managing potential resentment, or the special people get to innovate and I just get stuck building our basic product. That can create cultural challenges. So one of the things that we did really well at VMware that I'm quite proud of is we had a regular rotation of people who wanted, if they wanted to experiment with a new idea they were thinking about, they could take time out of their day job, quality time, like months, and 3 months to go build a prototype or do some research or write a paper or something that's going to give you the opportunity to explore. And that was a regular rotation. So everyone knew that if you want to innovate, you can do that here. You have to have a proposal. You can't just check out and maybe something happens. You have to be able to tell us, this is what I want to explore. And we had a lot of avenues, which we don't have time to get into all of that. Yeah, we had like conferences and we had all sorts of things that we did to make sure we facilitated that. And what we would communicate to everyone, this is, I guess, the last point I want to put on this, is failure is great when it comes to innovating inside of a big company, because you have to do a lot of things before you're going to find one thing that is the next big thing for us, right? So if you've got 10 or 15 cool things incubating somewhere, maybe only one of them will actually bear fruit. But if we don't have that volume, we're never going to get that one thing. So we used to celebrate the failures. And I loved that we did that. We give people rubber chickens or do other funny things and just say, like, thank you for trying, because you tried, we had enough volume that we got this one thing that's actually going to be great. So everybody wins.
Great. I mean, culture is so important for laying the foundation for a business that lasts. We hear that over and over again from our entrepreneurs. I wish we could ask more questions about that. What are some of the key concepts? Because you mentioned several. You got PMF, product market fit. You got WTP, willingness to pay. You got TAM. You've got, it seems like probably if you got WTP, you've got WTS as well, willingness to sell. What do you think are some of the key strategic concepts that entrepreneurs should be aware of in order to maximize their chance of success?
So beyond the real business topics that you just mentioned, the willingness to pay and getting to product market fit and execution, I can't emphasize enough how important the human side is. So it's the squishy stuff. And it's often the thing that entrepreneurs don't want to talk about or deal with because they just want to build something and get it out there, right? And so that can range from, if you have a co-founder, that can be, how are you building a relationship with someone that if you get to success, you'll likely be in relationship with from 7 to 10 years. Which a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize that's what they're signing up for. So I think it's really important to take a step back and say, are these the people that I want to build this business with? And
I love in the book, you have a whole chapter dedicated to identifying, choosing, recruiting the right co-founder.
That's right. That's right. Which takes some time to do that and do that well. Similarly, your investors are the same thing. So if you decide you're going to raise capital, which is a decision that founders need to make, we have more and more founders who are deciding to bootstrap and not raise capital right away, or maybe build more value before they go after capital. Then if you decide to take the fundraising route, then it's, your investors are more than just the money they give you, right?
Yes.
So that is also a relationship that you will be in through the life of your business, and not one you can get divorced from very easily. So having a real good sense of not just how much money do we want to raise, how much money do we need to raise to operate our business, because that's also important. It's can be very easily, you can fall into the vanity metric of, I raised $20 million. Well, that's good for you. You have a mortgage. So like, that's great. But like, who did you get that money from? And are they people who you're really going to enjoy working with for a while? Because after the check and the wire happens, there is the actual relationship that you're building with your investors that are really important as well.
Yeah, so we had David Wharton on the podcast. He wrote this evergreen book on evergreen companies, and he's very passionate about avoiding VC. And he says a lot of entrepreneurs are just really good salespeople that sell the idea to investors. They raise 20, then they've raised 30. So do you have any other tips? Because I imagine you often get entrepreneurs in your classes that say, I've got this great idea. I've done I think I got product market fit. Let me just go out to the market and get funding. Maybe they're too myopically looking at one source of funding. What do you say to them to have them think about a broader breadth of options for funding?
Yeah, so broader opportunities beyond VC there's so many. So there's everything from accelerators, which in some ways can be like VC, but not really, because you're getting the education and the network and a lot of other things from an accelerator. There are friends and family. Obviously, you can raise capital in a simpler way, although I always urge caution there. Friends and family should be people who actually know how to invest and understand that they may never see their money again. So I've seen relationships fractured because of this. So like, just make sure if you go that route that you understand it. Small business loans, contests, government grants. There are a lot of ways for you to get access to capital. There are so many businesses I work with who've just been super creative. Another thing that a lot of founders don't realize is you can do strategic relationships if you're in the B2B space with potential early adopters where they pay you to build your first release. It could be they pay extremely discounted of what you'll eventually charge for this thing, which I always recommend you make sure they know that. Like, you're paying for a new price of
The
whatever.
next invoice will be
Right,
bigger.
but yeah, but you're going to be my design partner. And that, for a lot of businesses, they enjoy that. They want to be part of an innovative process. They like the idea of supporting founders and startups. They feel lucky that they get to help inform. And then you start getting revenue, and you can actually be revenue funded earlier than you expect. So there are a lot of businesses that when they take that route are delightfully surprised. It's easier than they expected.
Yeah. And it's a great way to test product market fit, because if you can't get someone to pay and design with you, then maybe there's not a market there. Well, excellent. Well, thank you. So much more that we could dig in there. I think the whole area of capital allocation and acquisition and all of that is a whole area that's worth an entire podcast. But that's the time that we have with you. So Julia, thank you so much for being here with you. Thank you for writing this book. Entrepreneurs are going to avoid so many avoidable mistakes after reading After the Idea, what it really takes to create and scale a startup. So we highly encourage them to get the book. How else can they learn from you and connect with you?
First of all, thank you again for having me. It was a delight to talk with you. They can get more information by going to my website, aftertheideabook.com. They are also welcome to follow me on LinkedIn and DM me if they want to connect with me. And there's also connection information on the website.
Awesome. Julia, thank you so much for the work you do and for sharing it with us here.
It was a delight to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Strategy at Scale. Thanks to our guest, Julia Austin, our producer, Oscar Perez, and our team at Scaling Up, Outthinker, and Growth Institute. If you like what you heard, please follow, download, and subscribe. I'm Kaihan Krippendorf. We'll catch you soon with another episode of Strategy at Scale.